Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Just Law on IQRA TV. I'm your host Ilyas Bulbulia and I'll be with you for the next hour. As our regular viewers are aware, on Just Law we normally discuss an area of law which is of interest to you, our viewers. And secondly, it's a live show, so viewers, whatever questions you've got, you can ring on the number that will appear at the bottom of your screen and ask us any questions that you have, and hopefully on this show I'll be able to provide you with guidance and some steer in relation to any question that you have on any aspect of English law. On this show we should be able to cover most English law matters, ranging from criminal matters, family matters, personal injury matters, etc. So whatever your question is relating to English law, do pick up the phone and give us a call, and hopefully I'll be able to deal with that. Normally on the show we get a number of calls on immigration matters, which is fantastic, and we are able to, in the vast majority of cases, provide some real guidance to those who are phoning in. Just a couple of matters before we get going. Obviously it's a live show, so we're not able to look at documents live on air. So if it's the case where I do need to look at your documents before I can advise you, I'll ask you to send your documents in after the show's finished, and I'll have a look at the documents and then we can have a discussion off air. Secondly, just a second caveat before we get going, because it's a live show, obviously we're not able to take very detailed instructions off on the phone. So if there's a lot of history that I need to go through or a lot of complicated matters that I need to deal with, then it may not be appropriate for a live show. So what I'll do is I'll ask you to leave your number with the control room, and then I'll give you a call back and we can have a more thorough discussion about your question after the show's come to an end. But whatever your question is, as a starting point, do give us a ring and we'll have a discussion in relation to that. Now, over the last few weeks we've gone through a number of immigration topics, ranging from how to make an application, husband and wife, how they can make an application to come to the United Kingdom. We've looked at how their visas can be extended in the United Kingdom. We've looked at how you apply for indefinite leave, how you apply for nationality. So we've gone through those topics over the last few weeks. And in practice, the reality is that the majority of questions that immigration lawyers do receive relate to family immigration. It's about husbands, wives, how they can be sponsored to come to the UK, how they can stay in the UK, how they can have their visas extended, how can they apply for indefinite leave, and ultimately how can they obtain nationality. So obviously that's of real interest to our viewers, and over the last few weeks we've looked at that in a lot of detail. Today what I want to do is to look at something slightly different, not look at the family route to immigration into the United Kingdom, so not look at husbands and wives and what they need to do to come to the United Kingdom, but to look at a slightly different category, but nonetheless an important category of people who come to the United Kingdom. And that relates to begin with, how those who want to come and establish a business in the United Kingdom, how can they come to the United Kingdom? The typical route that they come under is the Tier 1 entrepreneur route, which allows someone to come to the United Kingdom and establish a business. And what I want to do today is really focus on that. Now, before we look at that, let's look at some of the background to this route of immigration into the United Kingdom. Now, obviously, over the last few years, our viewers are aware that the government has tightened the rules relating to migration into the United Kingdom. We've seen that with family-based applications, the introduction of the English language requirement, the introduction of the requirement that sponsors need to be earning 18,600, etc. Then you look at the student category, and there are difficulties with that. So there are difficulties across the board, but this category has remained open, and we'll look at that in greater detail after we've taken our first call for the day. Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam, brother.
Ji, wa alaikum assalam, brother. Thank you for calling. What's your question, brother?
Brother, my question is, brother, I've just recently been married. It's been like nearly going towards 6 months.
Right, okay.
And I just want to know what is the way to get my wife over.
All right, okay. Now,
what applications and what do
all
I
right.
need?
I'm assuming your wife is abroad at the moment. She's not in.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay. And then normally, I'll run through what we need to do, and it's a question that we get on a number of occasions. But let me just check with you. Normally, one of the most important requirements is finances. Are you employed? Are you self-employed? What's your current financial situation in terms of?
At the moment, I'm employed.
Okay. All right. And
I'm employed.
Okay. And how long have you been employed?
I've been employed for more than 2.5 years now.
More than 2.5 years. Fantastic. Okay. So what I'll do is run through what an employed person needs to do in order to sponsor their wife to come to the United Kingdom. If you keep on listening, brother, thank you for your call. I'll go through that now. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So before I return to the topic for the day, let me just answer this question relating to spouse applications and what needs to be done to try and sponsor the wife to the United Kingdom. Now, as I said, normally the most important thing that you need to look at is your finances. How financially are you going to be able to maintain your wife in the United Kingdom? Now, for somebody who's employed, to some extent, it's relatively easy as compared to somebody who's self-employed, where the requirements are much more onerous, much more complicated. For somebody who's employed and employed for at least 6 months, the normal route is that you submit 6 months of wage slips, 6 months of bank statements, and an employment letter from the employer confirming your employment. The key thing is that you need to be earning 18,600 per annum. Now, what I didn't take from the caller is whether the caller's on income which varies month by month, or whether the caller's on a salary which is fixed. Let's take the former first. If the sponsor in the United Kingdom, the caller, is receiving a salary which varies every month, then what you need to do is really look at the last 6 months of income and to see whether in the last 6 months whether you've received a total of 9,300 or not, half of obviously 18,600. So in those 6 months, have you received 9,300 pounds or not? And I'll look at that in greater detail after I've taken my next call. Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Ji walaikum salam. Thank you for calling.
I wanted to ask about the spouse visa, but through the savings route.
Okay.
What is the requirements for this apart from having the 60k in your savings account, please?
Okay, all right. Now, so are you looking at combining savings with income, or are you looking at just applying on the basis of savings?
Just on savings, or even if I could combine it, but I do have enough savings in my account.
Okay, all right, okay, right, okay. Thank you very much for your call. Let me deal with that. So essentially, if what you want to do is rely simply on savings and nothing else, then you need to have savings of 62,500 in your bank account, and the money needs to be in the bank account for at least 6 months. So that's the basic rule. The savings in terms of the amount is £62,500, and the money needs to be in the bank account for 6 months. Now, connected to that, obviously, are certain rules relating to what evidence needs to be submitted. That's the key thing. It's not sufficient that you have money in your account. It's what evidence needs to be submitted. In one sense, it's relatively easy because you need to submit 6 months of bank statements. So obviously the bank statements need to be original. They need to be in your name, nobody else's name. It needs to show that the money has been in the account for a total period of 6 months. So, and what the Home Office will do is look at the lowest amount that you've had in your bank account in the 6 month period. So if when you begin you've got £62,500 in your account, but if it drops, let's say, to 50,000 and you put additional money in, what they will do is look at your lowest amount. So they won't look at what the opening balance was, they won't look at what the money you've got now is, but they'll look at what was the lowest amount in the last 6 months. So you need to be careful. You need to make sure that the money that you're relying on has been there for the whole duration of 6 months. So you've got original bank statements that you submit. They need to be in your name, and they can't be more than 28 days old when the application is made. So they need to be fairly up-to-date bank statements. The other key thing is this, that the Home Office will want to know where the money has come from. So if it's money that you've accumulated over time because of your income from work, then ideally what you should do is not just submit 6 months of bank statements, submit previous bank statements as well, which shows that the money has been accumulated in your bank account for a long time. Take another example, that you've sold a house and the money has come as a result of the sale of a house into your bank account. Then again, show the bank statement showing the initial lump sum money coming in from the sale of the house. If the sale has been obviously conducted by solicitors, there'll be a completion statement, a letter from the solicitors confirming that the completion's taken place, you're receiving X amount of money. Put that in. That shows the source of the funds. If on the other hand, which is again very likely, the money has been given to you as a wedding gift, then what you would do is explain that, saying in a declaration, saying that the money has been given to you as a wedding gift. If possible, those who have given you the money, they would again do a declaration as well, saying, look, we had money in our account, we've given our daughter, our niece, whatever it is, a wedding gift, and that's the money that's been transferred into her account. So explain where the money's come from. If it's come from salary, explain that. If it's a gift, explain that. If it's as a result of selling something, explain that. The key thing is, if you don't want to take a risk, explain the source of the savings. So you've got on the one hand the bank statements, which really are the key documents which show that the money's there. Provide an explanation if possible in terms of where the money's come from, and then finally you should submit a statutory declaration explaining that the money is yours. It's not money that has to be returned to anybody, it's money that's yours. Now that is the documentary evidence that needs to be submitted when you're relying on cash savings. And as I said at the outset, if you have savings of £62,500, then your savings in themselves are enough when you're making a spouse application. Obviously, if it's a spouse application along with a child who's not a British citizen, who's also applying to come to the UK, then there will be an additional sum that will need to be available in savings on top of the £62,500. Now, that's where you're relying completely on savings. There is another situation where, and which is again common, where somebody will rely on their income from work, which, let's take an example, somebody earns £15,000 a year. So they're relying on their income from work, and they are also relying on savings as well. Now, in that situation, there is a calculation that you need to do to work out whether your savings are sufficient or not. So if we take, for example, somebody who earns £15,000 a year, so they are short by roughly £3,600 per annum. You can make up that shortfall using savings, but where some people fall into error is to assume that savings of £3,600, if that's the amount in their bank account, that's what they can add to their income and make up the 18,600. That's not the case. What the Home Office will do is apply a certain formula to the savings that you get, and after applying the formula, the figure that you come up with, that's the figure which is added on to your income. So for example, somebody who's got £20,000 in their bank account, the starting point is the Home Office will disregard the first £16,000. So their view will be disregard the £16,000 and they will work with your £4,000. So even that £4,000 figure cannot be added on to your income. What will happen with that £4,000 figure is that is then divided by 2.5. So it's £4,000 divided by 2.5. And it's the figure that you are then left with after dividing the £4,000 in our example here by 2.5. It's the amount that you are left with, which my maths isn't great, but something in the region of £1,250 or £1,500. It's that figure which is then added on to your income, and it's when the combined figure of your income plus the savings figure, when it's combined, it's that amount which the Home Office will combine and count to see whether you meet the 18,600 requirement. So I hope that sort of answers the question that you had. Just going back to the initial caller who was talking about the spouse application, and the caller was saying that he is employed, not self-employed. And as I explained, where somebody is employed, if they are on a salary which goes up and down, then they can take into account the money that they've received over the last 6 months. So as long as they've received £9,000, half of 18,600 in the 6-month period, that is then sufficient in terms of the amount that they should be receiving as gross pay. If on the other hand they are on a fixed salary, then the Home Office will look at what the lowest amount of salary was in the last 6 months. So if you've been on a salary of say £19,000, and as long as you've been receiving that every month, the salary hasn't dropped, then the Home Office will take that £19,000 figure into account. So to some extent it's easier where somebody is in employment in terms of the documentary evidence for meeting the requirement. It is simply wage slips, bank statements and an employment letter. Obviously there are other conditions attached to what those documents need to demonstrate, and we can look at that later on. But essentially that's how the finance requirement is met. Obviously, as we've spoken on previous shows, there's an accommodation requirement, so we'll need to show where the wife who's coming to the UK will be living. If the property is owned by the sponsor, all well and good. If not, a letter from the owner will need to be obtained, deeds confirming who owns the property, and a property inspection report confirming that there's sufficient space in the property and that it's fit for habitation. So that deals with accommodation. And then as we've discussed before on other shows, there's an issue about the relationship. If you're married, the marriage certificate will be submitted along with evidence that the relationship is subsisting. So evidence such as telephone call records, WhatsApp messages between each other. If the sponsor in the UK, the caller, is sending money, proof of that. If the sponsor's gone back to the UK to see his wife, then photographs together which shows that the person has gone back and they've spent time together. So there will be evidence of the relationship. We'll take our next call before we return to this topic. Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
जी भाई, thank you for calling. जी, what's your question?
जी, मेरा क्वेश्चन ये है कि मैं इधर आया था 2005 में.
जी, right, okay.
वर्क परमिट.
जी, okay.
और उसके बाद मेरी शादी हुई थी 2007 में.
जी, okay.
मेरी वाइफ इधर आए थे 2007 में.
जी.
तो मेरा वो एक हो गया था इंसिडेंट, वो था इंडिसेंट असॉल्ट का.
Okay, all right, okay.
जिसकी बुनियाद पे मेरा वर्क परमिट रिफ्यूज कर दिया था उन्होंने.
I understand, जी.
जी, तो उसके बाद मैंने मेरी बेटी पैदा हुई थी यहाँ में.
जी, okay.
मैंने डाली हुई है वो क्या कहते हैं, अपील डाली थी.
जी, okay.
यहाँ रहने के लिए. तो अभी तक उन्होंने कोई मुझे मैसेज जवाब नहीं दिया. एक दफा उन्होंने रिफ्यूज कर दिया था. जी. मैंने फिर से अपील डाली थी. जी. तब से लेकर अब तक उन्होंने कोई नहीं मुझे दिया. मेरी बेटी ने 10 साल का होना है. मैंने एक वकील के साथ बात की थी, तो वो कह रहे थे कि आप इनकी रजिस्ट्रेशन डालने पहले इनकी. जी. तो बाद में अपना डालना. आई
थिंक वो एडवाइस जो आपको मिली है वो राइट है. आपकी डॉटर यहाँ बोर्न हुई थी और वो 10 साल की होगी, तो उसके लिए वो रजिस्ट्रेशन होता है, वो सबमिट कर दो. वो रजिस्ट्रेशन वैसे जनरली स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड एप्लीकेशन है फॉर चिल्ड्रन. उसका फॉर्म टी एक फॉर्म आता है विच इज़ ऑन द इंटरनेट. फॉर्म टी फॉर्म टी फॉर टैंगो. जी. और जनरली इट्स अ स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड एप्लीकेशन. इसमें एविडेंस जो है ना, देयर इज रियली 2 pieces ऑफ एविडेंस विच यू शुड पुट इन. फर्स्ट पीस ऑफ एविडेंस ये है कि उसके स्कूल का लेटर्स, school letters which confirm that the daughter has attended a school from this date to this date. So obviously from the age of 4 or 5 to now to the age of 10, she might have attended 1 school or 2 schools. So both schools, letters from both schools, or if it's just one school. So
she's
that's
still in the one
primary
school from the day first.
Ji, all right. So that letter from the school, that's the key evidence. Ji. Second evidence, and this would be helpful if you can get this, because in my experience, Abhi, they've started asking for this, which is her medical records from the doctor. So ये दोनों ही डाल दो, because in half the cases वो medical records मांगते हैं.
जी.
तो डॉक्टर को आप कहेंगे ना कि just print off the whole of her medical file. तो and that is the supporting evidence आप form T के साथ भेजेंगे. और roughly 3 to 4 months most applications are approved. There shouldn't be a problem at all. और जो आपने ये बात की ना कि वो registration कर लेंगे, it's right. आप registration कर लो, इसके बाद आपकी और वाइफ की एप्लीकेशन चाइल्ड के बेस पे आप सबमिट करो कि द चाइल्ड इज ब्रिटिश एंड ऑन दैट बेसिस आई एम मेकिंग एन एप्लीकेशन.
जी 1 सेकंड प्लीज. अपनी आवाज ऊपर कर लो, नजर आ गया. ते अब दूसरा मैंने पूछना था कि फिर हमारे चांसेस कितने रह जाते हैं?
ओके, वाइफ का आई कांट सी अ प्रॉब्लम एट ऑल इन गेटिंग इट. आपने कहा था ना कि आपका कोई सेंटेंस हुआ थी एज अ रिजल्ट?
प्रोबेशन हुई थी.
Probation, they may raise that as an issue or suitability criteria here. They may raise it, and then ultimately, if they do raise it, I think they will give you a right of appeal, and the judge will then decide. Luckily, it's only probation, so ये कोई नहीं है कि sentence हुई, nothing like that. So hopefully,
I mean, that was 10 years ago. Was in 2008.
Yeah, there's a lot of other points that can be made. Ke probation, 10 years ago, daughter's now British. You know, there's no other problems have occurred. So I am hopeful that it won't be a problem. I am hopeful. और आपने जो describe किया ना, I am hopeful that it should get sorted out.
ठीक है. तो last question था कि पहले मैं अपना बेटी का डालूं
100%.
जब इसकी रजिस्ट्रेशन हो जाए.
जी.
तो आपने दूसरे बच्चों का और बीवी का अलग से डालूं और अपना बाद में डालूं या इनके साथ ही डालूं?
नहीं, together ही डाल दो. Together डाल दो.
Together डाल दो.
It should be fine. आपने just one additional thing, which is कि I don't know, आपके पास passport है valid या expired पाकिस्तानी passport?
Expired है.
That's fine. Original expired passport है आपके पास?
जी.
That's fine. Because
उसके ऊपर वीजा भी है 3 साल का ना?
That's fine, no problem. Because I think that's another problem ना कि आप जब apply करेंगे तो वो कहेंगे कि आपको original passport submit करनी पड़ेगी. It doesn't matter if it's expired, but it must be an original passport. So वाइफ के पास भी होना चाहिए, आपके पास भी होना चाहिए.
मेरे पास ड्राइविंग लाइसेंस भी है. और
बच्चे के पास, not the child for whom you are applying for the form T, उसके पास नहीं, दूसरे बच्चे के पास?
किसी के पास कुछ भी नहीं है अभी.
Alright, कितने children?
दूसरे बच्चे मेरे जो हैं वो एक 6 साल की है अभी सैटरडे को. बेटा मेरा 5 ईयर का और मेरी यंगेस्ट बेटी शी इज 1 year and 4 months.
You know the two younger ones who are not 10. तो I think आप try करो उसकी passport बन जाए तो, because that might be an issue. आप passport बना लो उसकी भी.
आप कौन सा पाकिस्तानी?
पाकिस्तानी passport बना लो. जी.
लेकिन वो मैंने रजिस्टर नहीं करवाया था इनको पाकिस्तानी कौंसल के साथ.
इसी प्रॉब्लम ये आएगा. This is an issue कि आप जब अप्लाई करेंगे ना वीज़ा, आपकी वीज़ा के लिए, तो if you make a family application, as in yours, wife's and dependent children's, so there will be an issue about if they don't have a valid passport. तो फिर आपको क्या करना पड़ेगा कि you don't apply for the kids then at that stage, and you just apply for yourself and your wife. ऐसा करना पड़ेगा. Because children का passport नहीं है, and if it's a group application, वो सबके application return कर देंगे.
ठीक है. तो इनका पासपोर्ट बनवाने के लिए मुझे क्या जरूरत पड़ेगी?
वो तो नॉर्मली आपको पाकिस्तान एम्बेसी से बात करनी पड़ेगी, बट इट शुडंट बी अ प्रॉब्लम बिकॉज आपके पास ओरिजिनल पासपोर्ट है, सो इट शुडंट बी अ प्रॉब्लम. आप पाकिस्तानी एम्बेसी अपॉइंटमेंट बना लो और देन सॉर्ट दैट आउट. ओके जी, थैंक यू वेरी मच आपके फॉर योर कॉल. वी नीड टू टेक अ ब्रेक. We'll go for break now. Thank you.